Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Casio MTP-1302PD-2A2VEF Tiffany. This watch is available from monting.fr for €48. So firstly, let's look at the box that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the specifications of the piece. So the watch comes in this black Casio branded cardboard watch box, which is carbon fibre effect. It has a cardboard drawer which you withdraw from the sleeve, and inside the cutout we have a piece of foam. So the watch is a snug fit on this piece of foam inside the cutout, and it does a good job of protecting the watch in shipping from any damage. Now, this is disappointing because it's a clear cost-cutting measure by Casio using the least expensive option of a cardboard watch box. I recently reviewed a low-tier Casio piece which cost €53, but that came in a very aesthetically pleasing watch roll which was made from vinyl or PU leather, and I'd like to see Casio introduce those watch rolls to all their low-tier pieces between the €50 and €60 price point. But however, one has to be magnanimous and realistic because this is a low-tier piece costing only €48. But this cardboard box is not as good as the vinyl or PU leather watch roll of the other piece I reviewed, which I prefer. So with regards to the items that come with the piece, this is the owner's instruction manual, which is in the form of a fold-out leaflet. It's translated into English and a plethora of foreign languages, clear concise diagrams, and it details the operation of the movement used, which is the Casio Module 2784 quartz, which is a rebranded Miyota 2115 quartz. One also gets this leaflet, which is the warranty card in the form of a fold-out leaflet. Again, it's translated into English and a plethora of foreign languages, and it details the terms and conditions of the 12-month international warranty. If you purchase this watch from monting.fr, they cover the watch with a 2-year international warranty, which is very good, bearing in mind it's a low-tier price point piece at only €48. And one also gets this leaflet, which is Casio's advice on disposal of electrical and electronic waste, because this piece is powered by the Casio Module 2784 quartz, which is battery powered, and therefore when you dispose of it, the battery is electrical waste. And lastly, one also gets this Casio branded cardboard tag. On the reverse, we have the full reference number of the piece, the barcode, and also the module number, the Casio 2784 quartz. Now I want to show you the bracelet resizing method because this is interesting. So this uses folded hollow oyster style links in the oyster style bracelet versus solid links using push pins and screw pins, which are the industry standard. So Casio has its own proprietary quick release system, and they use keys which are L-shaped. So as you can see, there's a direction of arrow, and that tells you which way to push out the keys, and the keys are L-shaped and they're handed left to right, so you can't reverse them or put them in upside down. They will only go in the correct way up and the correct way round. Now on the front of the keys they have a nodule which faces you, and on the reverse they have a dimple. So if I turn it round, you can see in the back we have a dimple, and on the front we have a nodule, and you always need to have the nodule facing you because that engages with the slot in between the two links. So in order to resize the bracelet, you simply use a 1mm jeweler's screwdriver and you prise it upwards like so, and the tip of it prises up the key, and that releases it, as you can see. Just bear with me, I'll get the camera to focus on it. So as you can see, it's L-shaped, and if you look closely you can see on the front of it, it has a nodule, and that nodule engages with the slot, and the dimple on the reverse doesn't engage, so you can only get it the correct way round. So I'll take it out and show it to you and then get the camera to focus. So as you can see, it's L-shaped and it's made from solid 316L grade stainless steel. On the reverse it has a dimple, so you always must have the nodule facing towards you versus the dimple, and if you have the nodule facing towards you, the L-shaped key will be the correct way round, left to right, because it's handed. And these push in with just fingertip pressure. You don't need a tool. So once you resize the bracelet, you simply push the key back in, and you don't need to use a screwdriver or tool to press it back in. You just push it in with your finger and then your fingernail pressure, and that will press it in flush. As you can see, the flank of the L-shaped key is now flush with the flanks of the bracelet, and it's very good because the nodule in the front, which engages in the slots in between the folded links, sets the depth of the key, so it can't go too deep or too shallow. It's perfect. The alignment is correct. The flanks are perfectly smooth and flush. the key doesn't stick proud, and it's not too deep, it's not recessed. So it works very well. Now the negative is, aesthetically, you can see the slots in the folded links and you can see the key inside, but the mirror polishing is very good, no sharp edges. But I want to give due credit to Casio here because this is innovative and it works very well. As an alternative to push pins or 1.6mm screw pins, which are the industry standard. However, I would prefer to see solid links in the bracelet rather than hollow folded links, but however, one has to be realistic. This is a €48 low tip piece. Folded link oyster style bracelets are the industry standard. But it's a good system and it's a credible alternative to push pins or screw pins. There's no risk of these keys with the nodules engaging, working loose, so it's not going to accidentally come out again. And as you can see, 1mm screwdriver to push it out, and they push out very easily with minimal force, and they push back in just with a fingertip or fingernail pressure, and works very well. So I wanted to show you that in detail because Casio deserve credit for it. So with regards to the specifications of the piece, this MTP-1302 is clearly an homage to the Rolex Datejust, but it also uses the Rolex Oyster Perpetual 41 Tiffany dial colour, has a very similar matte Tiffany blue dial. Also has double applied indices at 12, 9, 6 and 3, which are similar to the Oyster Perpetual 41's double applied indices at 9, 6 and 3 respectively. So really it's inspired by both pieces because it's clearly a Datejust homage with the fluted bezel, but it uses the Tiffany blue dial from the Oyster Perpetual 41 Tiffany. So with regards to the specifications, we have a 38.5mm case diameter. We have a 44.4mm lug-to-lug measurement, a thickness of 9.8mm and a lug width of 20mm. The oyster style bracelet tapers from 19.8mm at the lugs down to 18mm at the clasp. Now I think Casio have made a mistake here on the taper because the perfection personified taper that I often refer to in my previous reviews is the industry standard for good reason. 20 to 16 is the perfect taper for a 38 or 39mm head of the piece. So this is 38.5 and therefore a 20 to 16 taper would be perfect. That is nice because it's aesthetically pleasing but also reduces the meat on the bracelet. Using a 19.8 to 18 taper makes the bracelet look straight and parallel rather than tapered, so there's too much meat on the bracelet. I think 20 to 16 will look better, but however this is subjective. Some collectors might like the 19.8 to 18 taper because it does add some heft to the bracelet, which is light because it's folded link versus solid link. So flip lock clasp, as you can see, and it's brushed satin finished with a beautiful luster, signed to a good standard with the engraved Casio logo, and the flanks are mirror polished to a flawless standard. Also there's a large bevel which marks the transition between the brushed satin finished body and the mirror polished flanks, and that's mirror polished. So light gauge, they could improve upon it and they could lengthen the clasp, but on a positive note I'm pleased to see 4 micro adjustment holes because some Casio bracelets only have clasps with 2 micro adjustment holes, which is the minimum. Having 4 is very good because it allows you to fine-tune the fit. They could further enhance this bracelet by adding half links, one on the 6 o'clock, one on the 12 o'clock side of the clasp, because in the absence of half links sometimes it's hard to get the perfect fit just by adding or subtracting one full oyster style link, but it's good to see 4 micro adjustment holes because that does help. The crystal is mineral crystal versus sapphire crystal, which is a clear cost-cutting measure in order to maximise profit margin per piece. So that's disappointing, but one has to be magnanimous and realistic. This is only €48, so one is going to see mineral crystal at this price point. However, that's not the only negative. There is no AR coating on the underside of the mineral crystal. The negative is there is a lot of reflection and glare, as you can see. When you tilt the piece at an oblique angle, it's like a mirror, and it's very shiny, very reflective, and this really would benefit from anti-reflective coating on the underside. In terms of production cost, it's negligible. The amount of money that Casio is saving per piece on production costs by not using mineral sapphire crystal with AR coating. It's not much more expensive than mineral crystal without AR coating, and bear in mind they're producing batches of hundreds of thousands of these pieces. They're producing millions of these per annum. So It's negligible. They are saving on production costs in order to maximise profit margin per piece, which is why they do it, but collectors would happily pay an additional €5 on the retail price to have sapphire crystal with AR coating, because as you can see, mineral crystal is not as hard and scratch resistant, so it's going to become scuffed and scratched more easily than sapphire crystal, and of course the AR coating means the legibility and the clarity of the dial is poor. That's not the only problem, because the Rehort is mirror polished, and they should have used the brushed satin finished Rehort, because that would refract the light rather than reflecting it. It's mirror polished, as you can see, and that bounces the light around the dial and the indices and the handset rather like a 360-degree mirror. So, problem is, when the light enters the mineral crystal, rather than being refracted by the Rehort, it's actually reflected and bounced around the dial, and as you can see, it's like wearing a 360-degree mirror on wrist. So very shiny, very reflective, no AR coating, and mirror polished Rehort compounds the problem. So, with regards to materials, it's something I want to bring to your attention. This piece uses several brass materials, brass components, which are nickel plated to give the appearance of 316L grade stainless steel, but they are not solid 316L grade stainless steel despite the look. They're actually brass, which is nickel plated. So the fluted bezel is made from brass, which is nickel plated. The case is made from brass, which is nickel plated. The crown is made from brass, which is nickel plated. The Rehort beneath the mineral crystal is also made from brass, which is nickel plated. Now, credit where credit's due. The quality of the nickel plating is excellent. Casio deserve full credit because they have done a very good job of nickel plating the brass. Visually, it looks exactly the same as mirror polished 316L grade stainless steel. Fluted bezel is finished to perfection. The quality of the machining to the flutes on the bezel, made from brass, and the quality of the nickel plating to the flutes is fantastic. There are no flaws in the nickel plating or the finishing to the brass beneath it whatsoever. Quality of the mirror polishing to the brass case is fantastic. Quality of the the quality of the nickel plating to it is flawless. No imperfections whatsoever, so that's good. Same applies to the knurled crown, which is made from solid brass and then nickel plated. Quality of the machining to the knurled teeth is good, and then the mirror polishing to the cap is good, and then they nickel plate it to a good standard. But the negative of using nickel plating is, with daily wear and tear, the nickel plating is going to become scuffed and scratched and therefore reveal the base metal beneath it, which is brass. And the problem is brass is gold coloured versus silver, as per stainless steel. So when you scuff and scratch the nickel plating, unlike a stainless steel case, for example, you cannot polish out the scuffs and scratches using a Cape Cod polishing cloth or jeweler's rouge, because if you try to polish out scratches on nickel plating, you remove the nickel plating and reveal more of the base metal beneath it, which is the gold coloured brass. So this is the problem with a brass case, brass bezel and brass crown, because these are all areas that are prone to being worn with daily wear, with scuffs and scratches, with daily wear and tear. I would like to see Casio use a stainless steel bezel, stainless steel case, stainless steel crown, because then one could polish out scuffs and scratches and one doesn't have to worry about the nickel plating wearing off. That's the negative, but when it's new, it does look very aesthetically pleasing, and they have done a very good job of the finishing to the bezel, the case and also the crown. So the crown is knurled finish. Now I think this would look better if it were coin edge finished versus knurled finish, because the knurled teeth are quite coarse, and I think that a finer coin edge teeth on the crown would better complement the fluted bezel, because the flutes on the bezel are very fine, almost like a coin edge bezel, but it's a fluted bezel as per the Datejust, which this is an homage to. But I think the knurled crown doesn't match. Usually with a scalloped bezel, a knurled crown works well because the knurled crown matches the scallops on the bezel. With a coin edge bezel, a coin edge crown matches. With a fluted bezel, usually the industry standard is to use a coin edge bezel, because coin edge crown. Coin edge crowns better match fluted bezels and also coin edge bezels, but it's knurled. The chamfer on it is good because it deletes the sharp tips of the knurled teeth of the brass crown. So let's test the push-pull crown execution. Push-pull crown provides an effective hermetic seal to 50 meters, which is perfectly acceptable for a daily wear piece. So pulling it out to the first click position is the quick set date. So when you rotate the brass crown anti-clockwise, it advances the quick set date complication. So high definition, crisp, nice fine font used on the Arabic numerals of the black Arabic numerals on the white date wheel. The date complication is framed with a black frame, looks good. The proportion of the date cutout for the window in the dial is correct. It's large enough, so there's not a large shadow created around the date complication. Single numerals are centered correctly. The alignment is good. Left to right, they're right, and up and down, it's correct. So both the singles and the doubles are correctly proportioned, and the alignment is correct. They're bang on the center, and it clicks over with a nice light click. Feels reliable, robust, and it's good. Now, in terms of how it feels, the quickset complication clicks over with a much lighter click than mechanical movements such as the Seiko Caliber NH35A, which you'll all be familiar with. Feels more similar to a Miyota 8215 with a lighter action to the quickset, so that takes some getting used to, but once you become accustomed to it, feels very good. Solid indexing, but doesn't have the loud audible click or the feeling of a heavy click one gets with an NH35A. Feels lighter. So pulling it out to the second click position hacks the movement, and as you can see, looking at the second hand, it's now stopped dead, so it's possible to set the time precisely to the second with a Casio module number 2784 quartz, which is a rebranded Miyota 2115 quartz. The same movement used in the Casio Duro and a plethora of Casio watches. The Miyota 2115 is very reliable. So we're now in the time setting position. Feels very light. One can feel minimal friction in the gearing. The gears mesh very well. Feels very smooth. The module has 0 joules and therefore very low friction, and it feels exactly the same clockwise and anti-clockwise. Feels much lighter than a mechanical movement such as the NH35A. Feels more similar to a Miyota 8215 automatic, and it feels good. Minimal backplay. When you rotate the pencil minute hand, there's an almost immediate response. When you rotate the crown, you can see the minute hand moves almost instantly. The very minimal backplay. It's a nice tight movement, so I really like the Miyota 2115, which is rebranded as the Casio Module 2784. Pushing it back in, it's got a nice positive click. That reinstates the 50 meters of hermetic seal and restarts the module. As you can see, the second hand begins to tick around the dial once again, and it's very aesthetically pleasing. The proportions of the pencil handsets, which are like baton hands, but they have pointed tips, so they're pencil hands versus baton hands, but the proportions are similar to the baton hands used on the Rolex Datejust and also the Oyster Perpetual 41, which one could say this is an homage to. So I like the handset, I like the silver applied indices. Quality of the printing on the dial is excellent. Nice sharp minute ticks to the chaptering, also nice sharp fine font to the Arabic numerals for the minutes next to the indices. And the printing is sharp, it's high definition. The Casio logo is crisp, also WR50M for water resistant 50 meters is sharp. I really like it. Also, either side of the 12 o'clock index and the 30 Arabic numerals, we have Japan movements because this is powered by a Japanese Miyota 2115. So push-pull crown works well, time setting works well, quick set date works well, and also the hacking works well. It's good. Right, so with regards to the finishing, the bezel is fluted, nice fine grained teeth to the fluted bezel, and the edge of it has a nice large mirror polished section to it, and it's very aesthetically pleasing. Low profile fluted bezel, nice fine flutes, and quality of the mirror polishing to the case is very good. So let's look at the bracelet and end links in detail. So as you can see, folded hollow end links, which are a clear cost-cutting measure, and one has to be magnanimous about this at the €48 price point. Doesn't feel stiff or kink, articulates freely, but the negative is it's sloppy. Lateral, side to side, up and down, longitudinal play. Play in every single direction, so it clicks, it rattles. This is the negative of using hollow folded end links versus solid end links, because the interference fit of the spring bar going through the hollow end links, the folded end links, is poor. So poor build quality, quality control, and tolerances, very sloppy. Huge amount of play, as you can see, and it rattles. Now, on a positive note, the quality of the finishing to the bracelet, which is made from 316L grade stainless steel. I won't say solid because it's folded link rather than solid link, but the point I'm making is it's not made from brass, which is nickel plated. So 316L grade stainless steel. Mirror polishing to the center links is flawless. Beautiful luster to the outer links, and it does visually look very similar to a Rolex Datejust Oyster bracelet, which is made from 904L Oyster steel. So quality of the finishing is good. No sharp edges to the top edge or the lower edge of the flanks, which is very good. And the mirror polishing to the flanks is very good. Now, one can see the lines of the keys, which are L-shaped, as I've detailed, and also the mirror polished edges of the folded links. So one can see the lines, which is the negative. It's not very aesthetically pleasing, but however, finishing is good. No sharp edges, doesn't have sharp corners to the links, so they've deburred and chamfered it very well, despite it being an inexpensive folded link bracelet. However, the negative is it's sloppy. Huge amount of play in each of the pins, each of the links, because of these quick release L-shaped teeth, and it rattles. It's a very sloppy bracelet. Lateral, side to side, up and down, longitudinal play. Cumulative effect across the length is it rattles on wrist, very sloppy. On a positive note, it does not pull arm hairs, which is a pleasant surprise, because often folded link oyster style bracelets like this pull arm hairs. Now, I previously reviewed another Casio piece which had a flat link bracelet with folded links that did pull arm hairs, had the same kind of slots for the quick release keys for resizing the bracelet, and those slots pulled on the arm hairs, but this doesn't. Let's check the other side for continuity. So again, doesn't feel stiff or kink, but however, huge amount of lateral, longitudinal, and side to side play. Play in every single direction, it rattles. Bracelet rattles, it's sloppy. On a positive note, the links do not feel stiff or kink, but the articulation isn't very good, because unlike push pins or screw pins, which allow the oyster links to articulate, these L-shaped keys or teeth, they prevent the bracelet articulating. As you can see, I can't actually flex it more than that. So it does wrap around the wrist okay. Even if you have a smaller wrist of 6 to 7 inches, it does curve enough. It does articulate enough. It flexes. So it doesn't feel stiff or kink, but by using these L-shaped teeth, it means that it can't articulate fully as per a push pin or screw pin bracelet. As you can see, I can't actually make the bracelet articulate downwards. I can make it articulate outwards, but that's the limit of its articulation. If I push down now, just bear with me, I'll get the camera to focus with my glove behind it. So if I push down now, it doesn't flex, as you can see. So it's rather like a slab of 316L grade stainless steel, because it doesn't move inwards, but it pushes outwards, as you can see. I can get it to articulate outwards. So in terms of the curvature of a wrist, it will wrap around it well, even if you have a smaller wrist. You're not going to get an abhorrent gap beneath it. But it's not as flexible. The point I'm making is, this does not articulate as freely as a push pin or screw pin oyster style bracelet. And of course it is sloppy, despite using the L shape keys or teeth versus push pins. They need to tighten up the tolerances, and of course this would be much better if it had a solid link bracelet using push pins or screw pins, but this is to be expected. This is the kind of style of bracelet Casio are using in the low tier at the €48 price point, but it's sloppy. Let's look at the clasp. So pressed stainless steel, as you can see, beautiful luster to the brush satin finishing, flawless mirror polishing to the flanks, doesn't have a sharp undercut, which is good, doesn't have sharp corners, doesn't have a sharp top edge or low edge, so the quality of the finishing is good. Interior is pressed stainless steel, as you can see, and it's matte finished, so it's simply bead blasted effect to reduce production costs. This bead blasted effect is less expensive in terms of production cost. It costs Casio less to produce this matte bead blasted finish to it versus mirror polishing. Mirror polishing takes more time, therefore increases production cost, therefore reduces profit margin per piece. So matte finish to it, and it's not aesthetically pleasing as a result. However, on a positive note, no sharp edge to the top edge or the low edge of the flanks, and the quality of the matte bead blasted effect to the top side, underside and flanks is acceptable. Let's check the hinge pins. Dreadful. As you can see, very sloppy. Lateral, side to side, up and down, longitudinal play. And it's significant play. My concern about this is the long-term durability, because with excess longitudinal and lateral side to side play, it puts the pins into excess shear load. And how long is it going to be before the shear load is too much and the pin shears, or alternatively it simply drops out because of the extra play? Because what we've got is a pin in an elongated hole, and eventually what happens is the pin shears or just falls out. So my concern is the long-term durability, but on a positive note, articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink. Let's check the centre hinge pin. Again, articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, but lateral, side to side, up and down, longitudinal play. Play in every single direction, it's sloppy. Finally, let's check the right hand hinge pin, articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, so that's the benefit, but again, sloppy. Lateral, side to side, up and down, longitudinal play. Play in every single direction, and it rattles. So all three hinge pins, there is room for improvement with regards to build quality, quality control, tolerances and machining. What we've got here are three hinge pins which are undersized in holes which are too large. And rather than being an interference friction fit, they are sloppy fit. And the clasp rattles as a result. So it rattles on wrist, and the problem is, my concern is long-term durability. How long is it going to be before one of the pins fails? This one is the worst. It's dreadful. It really is bad because we've got huge amounts of play, more than 2 millimeters of lateral side to side play, as you can see. And this really is putting that pin under a lot of excess shear load. So it's going to stress it and eventually make it fatigue, and then it will shear. And the bracelet will come apart and the watch fall on the ground. And of course this is a brass case which is nickel plated, and it will scuff and scratch it. So that's the negative. Let's look at the case back. Solid 316L grade stainless steel case back, concentric CNC lathe tool machined. I like the way the concentric CNC lathe tool machining refracts the light. Very aesthetically pleasing. Engraved with high definition engraving with the specification of the piece, also the reference number, and we've got the module number 2784, which is a Miyota 2115. Good quality engraving. Now, they've been honest and it says cased in China because the movement used, the Miyota 2115 quartz, is made in Japan, but the watch itself is made in China. So they case the movement in China. So it says underneath Casio, Japan movement, which is true because it's Miyota 2115. But then underneath it, it says cased in China. So the watch is assembled in China using a genuine Japanese-made Miyota 2115 quartz. But quality of the engraving is good, and I like the finishing to it. The circumference is mirror polished to a flawless standard. It's a pressed-on case back rather than a screwed-on case back, which again is a cost-cutting measure, but this isn't a dive piece. A pressed-on case back with 50 meters of hermetic seal is perfectly acceptable. I personally would prefer to see a screw-down case back, even with 50 meters, because that wouldn't need to be made thicker. It wouldn't increase the thickness of the piece significantly. It still would be 9.8 millimeters thick, but a screw-down case back provides a better hermetic seal than a pressed-on case back. But 50 meters is okay, and it is acceptable. Quality of the finishing to the head of the piece on the underside is excellent. The mirror polishing to the brass case is good, and then the nickel plating is good, and no sharp edges to the undercuts to the flanks, and the tips of the four corners of the lugs have been deburred and chamfered very well. The negative is the hollow folded end links. Although they're a snug fit to the head of the piece, they are poor quality, as you can see. I would like to see solid end links, but of course one has to be realistic. This is a low-tier piece costing €48. One is going to see hollow folded end links. But quality of the finishing to the case back is good. The thing I like about it is it's very flat. And this is the benefit of this being quartz powered versus mechanical and automatic. You can see how flat and low profile it is, therefore it fits very snug to the wrist, and it's comfortable to wear for long periods of time, such as 8 to 12 hours per day, because it's perfectly smooth and flat. The engraving doesn't feel sharp or rough, it's very smooth, it's been deburred and polished very well. Right, so I'll give you a wrist shot and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist. Now, I have sized the bracelet. I've removed 2 fill links as I've demonstrated because I wanted to show you the bracelet resizing system. So, I've sized this correctly using the correct sizing method. One should always be able to slide an index finger beneath the bracelet and clasp at all times. This allows for wrist expansion in warmer weather or when one is active. So, one index finger is the correct amount of expansion, and that allows the wrist to swell and the bracelet will fit. The other benefits of this correct sizing method of the index finger beneath the bracelet and clasp is it reduces the shear load on the pins, and this applies to both push pins and screw pins respectively, and also these quick release keys which are L-shaped, because it reduces the shear load on them. When a collector sizes the bracelet too tight, that puts the push pins or screw pins under excess shear load, and what it does is it expedites the wear in the pins and also the holes in the links, and that's often the reason why Oyster and Jubilee style bracelets quickly wear and become sloppy and the interference fit becomes diminished, because the shear load on the pins and the shear load on the holes in the links has a lot of shear load, and that increases the friction and therefore wears them out, so they become sloppy. But if you size your bracelets like this with an index finger beneath the bracelet and clasp, that reduces the shear load and it reduces the wear and tear on the links and the pins. So as you can see, they made a mistake with the taper. It's 19.8 at the lugs, tapering down to 18. Now it looks okay, but it would look better if it had the perfection personified taper of 20 to 16 that I often refer to. That is the perfect taper. But the mirror polishing to the centre links is aesthetically pleasing. Beautiful lustre to the brushed satin finish outer links. That complements the brushed satin finishing to the clasp. So on a 38.5mm head of the piece, the 19.8 to 18 oyster style bracelet does look okay. Fluted bezel looks very good. I like the mirror polishing to the flutes, which is actually nickel plated brass, but it does visually look very similar to 316L grade stainless steel. Mirror polishing to the case is aesthetically pleasing. On the tops of the lugs and the flanks, it complements the mirror polishing to the centre links in the bracelet. I really like the matte blue tone of the Tiffany dial. Absolutely gorgeous colour. They made the correct decision by not using a sunburst blue or alternatively enamel glossy blue. And I think the matte finish does look very nice. It does look very similar to an Oyster Perpetual 41 Tiffany. Similar tone to it, similar matte finish. Silver mirror polished applied indices and the silver pencil handset, which are like baton style hands, look very good. Just a shame it doesn't have AR coating on the underside of the mineral crystal, because when I tilt it at an oblique angle, very shiny and reflective, lots of glare, and as I've detailed, that's compounded by the brass nickel plated rehort, which is mirror polished versus brushed satin finished as per a stainless steel rehort. The problem with the nickel plated rehorts is they cannot brushed satin finish the nickel plating, because the scratches would of course remove the nickel plating from the rehort and it would reveal that it's a brass rehort versus stainless steel. They really should have used a solid stainless steel rehort and brushed satin finished it, but good looking piece. Feel good factor is 10 out of 10. Comfort level is 10 out of 10. Thing that I want you to be aware of, with all the links in the oyster style bracelet, this is only 107 grams. With a 38.5mm head of the piece, I would expect this to be circa 135 grams plus. Bear in mind, I've removed 2 links, and that's reduced the heft to even below 107 grams. This is now 100 grams of heft, but feels weightless. Feels very close and comfortable, snug to the wrist. It feels balanced, doesn't feel top heavy. The 38.5mm head of the piece balances the bracelet and clasp very well, so it doesn't feel like a light bracelet and clasp on a heavy head of the piece. The head of the piece and the bracelet do feel very well balanced. Comfort level is fantastic. Feel good factor is fantastic. So it's a great looking piece. The thing I'm very impressed with, it pleasantly surprised me, is this folded link bracelet does not pull arm hairs. When it slides up and down the wrist, it doesn't catch arm hairs in the slots. And unlike the other Casio piece I recently reviewed, which does pull arm hairs, that's had a flat link, folded link bracelet, and that did pull arm hairs. This one doesn't. So visually it looks good and also feels good, feels very comfortable, feels exactly the same as a solid link oyster style bracelet. Even though it's a folded link bracelet with slots, you would expect it to pull arm hairs. I really like the fluted bezel. It's absolutely gorgeous, the way it catches the light. Does look visually very similar to a Datejust. And also the Tiffany dial looks very similar to the Oyster Perpetual 41 Tiffany. And gorgeous looking piece. So feel good factor is excellent, comfort level is excellent. Very well balanced. Just a shame they didn't use the 20 to 16 perfection personified taper. Clasp is low profile. The benefit of it being short and not too wide or too thick is even for a smaller wrist. For example, if you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist, the clasp isn't too large and bulky, it's not too long, and the internal portion isn't going to stick out and make the bracelet kink. And therefore, if you have a smaller wrist, it's going to wrap around the wrist well. And even if you have a larger wrist, like I do, 6 to 7 inches or 7 to 8 inches, you can see the clasp is going to fit very well. So it's low profile. It's not as bulky as a micro adjustment clasp with a ratcheting mechanism, for example. It's low profile. So it looks good, feels good. It's just a shame they didn't use a solid stainless steel case, stainless steel bezel and stainless steel rehort and stainless steel crown versus brass, which is nickel plated. But visually, you couldn't tell the difference. It looks exactly the same as mirror polished stainless steel. Fantastic. Really comfortable piece, really good looking piece. So feel good facts and comfort level are 10 out of 10. Right, so let's do a Lume test and we'll see how the Lume performs when it's charged up to the absolute maximum. So this uses Casio Neo Bright, which is their proprietary name for Luminova. Neo Bright is luminova, it's not made from superluminova, which you will see becomes apparent in the Lume test. So as always, I'm going to use my 100 UV LED torch to charge it up to the absolute peak. Right, so that's now fully charged, and as you can see, initially it looks okay performance because the exciter looks to have potent performance, but you're clearly going to see it's going to fade immediately to nothing and fade to a very poor performance. Now, this is clearly luminova, not superluminova. It has the same green tone as C3 superluminova, but it's actually C3 luminova, and this is very disappointing. Now you can see just how quickly it's fading. Negligible performance. Now, on a positive note, in daylight conditions, it's got a nice white tone. It doesn't look cream, which is good. There's no lume applied on the indices. They could have done that to make it look more like a Datejust or alternatively Oyster Perpetual, because this is an homage to the Datejust, but it just has silver applied indices. So I think Casio could improve it if they applied some lume to the applied indices, but however, it's subjective. Some collectors might like the mirror polished silver tone of the indices without lume. But you can see the pencil hands are now fading to nothing. So I'm just going to repeat the lume test again, because the camera is struggling to autofocus on it because the exciter is so weak. The lack of potency means it's very hard to focus on. It's very dim. So I'm going to charge up a second time because I want the camera to focus, and you see how quickly it fades to nothing. Really, Neo Bright is just poor quality luminova, and it looks like 2 to 3 layers on the hands versus 5 to 6, which is the industry standard for good reason. That is optimum. Right, so that's now fully charged again. So as you can see, initially, pencil hands appear to glow brightly with the C3 luminova, but you can see it's now going to fade immediately to nothing, and already the camera is struggling to autofocus on it because it's so dim. The potency of the exciter is so weak that the camera cannot focus on it. It's fading to darkness. So negligible performance. This is clearly 2 to 3, not even 3 to 4 layers. This is a clear cost-cutting measure by Casio in order to reduce production costs and maximise profit margin per piece. And it's a cost-cutting measure too far because, again, as I've detailed, the production cost to Casio of using C3 superluminova, using 5 to 6 layers on this, is negligible. They are producing batches of hundreds of thousands of these pieces. They are producing millions of these pieces per annum. It adds minimal, negligible production cost to each piece. To use 5 to 6 layers of C3 superluminova or BGW9 superluminova. Really using this 2 to 3 layers of luminova is just to save a fraction, a really fine margin on the production cost, and as you can see, it's now faded to nothing. So disappointing. I'd like to see Casio improve upon that, and this is a characteristic of a plethora of Casio watches, including the Joro and even the more expensive watches such as the G-Shocks, which are supposed to be premium. So they really need to upgrade the lume they're using to BGW9 or C3 superluminova and the industry standard, which is 5 to 6 layers, because as you can see, visually it does look good. It looks white in daylight conditions on the pencil hands, and it's just a shame it does not use 5 to 6 layers. If this used C3 or BGW9 with 5 to 6, it would be really good. The other thing is collectors would happily pay an additional €5 on the retail price to have BGW9 or C3, but this is Neo Bright, and this is the performance to be expected. So let's discuss the movement used. So this is powered by the Casio Module 2784 Quartz, which is a rebranded Miyota 2115. And it's made in Japan. The Miyota 2115 has been in service since 2000, so at this stage in 2025, it is a reliable, well-proven workhorse quartz caliber. It has 0 joules. It has a 3-year battery life, which is very impressive. So potentially you could purchase this piece and wear it for 3 years without needing to change the battery. Has hacking, which works well because you can set the time precisely to the second. Quick set date complication works well. And the stated accuracy of the Miyota 2115 Quartz is plus or minus 20 seconds per month. Just think about that for a moment. That's not plus or minus 20 seconds per day or per week. Plus or minus 20 seconds per month is better than plus or minus 1 second per day accuracy. So it's incredibly accurate with a long battery life of 3 years. And I can confirm this one is running better than plus or minus 1 second per day. The accuracy of this module is 0 seconds per day. Perfect accuracy. 3-year battery life, hacking, quick set dates, 0 seconds per day. Plus or minus 20 seconds per month. It is an incredibly reliable, robust accurate module. Correct choice for this movement, and it's well proven. Been in service for 25 years, used in a plethora of Casio watches, the same movement used in the Casio Duro, which is one of my personal favourite pieces. So, correct choice. I really like it. No negatives to it whatsoever. So lastly, I'll summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch should meet two criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price point. So low tier piece, price point is €48. I'm going to declare it good quality at €48. Sorry, I'm going to declare it good value at €48. €48 is inexpensive in the low tier. One has to say good value. Quality, I'm going to say, is okay. I'm not going to say quality is good or excellent because there are too many cost-cutting measures. Above all else, the things that disappoint me about this are the use of the brass components, which are nickel-plated. Brass bezel, brass crown, brass case, and also brass rehorts. These components need to be made from 316L grade stainless steel. If the bezel, case, crown and rehorts were all made from 316L grade stainless steel, I would upgrade it to excellent quality and excellent value. I'd declare it a champagne watch for lemonade money. Even though it has the weak performance Neo Bright, even though it has a mineral crystal with no AL coating, even though it has a sloppy bracelet and this abhorrent pressed stainless steel clasp, I would still declare it a champagne watch for lemonade money, because if it were stainless steel throughout at €48, with the Miyota 2115, I would say yes, it's excellent quality and excellent value. But I can't say that because this kind of dreadful quality control, builds quality and tolerances is wholly unacceptable. Even at €48, one has to be magnanimous about some cost-cutting measures such as mineral crystal, the lack of AR coating and the weak Neo Bright Luminova. But you cannot be magnanimous about this. Dreadful. So bracelet is poor, clasp is poor, and the use of brass components. So I'm going to say good value, quality is okay, but I can't say quality is excellent or good. So I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Casio MTP-1302PD-2A2VEF Tiffany. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you for watching.